I'm Leonard Riggs, and this is my podcast from my head years back in the bedroom studio, so to speak, with the beeping fire alarm thing up there. Sorry. Anyway, it's too hot outside to be on the catio. I don't care for summer, as you know. I've got to run a cord out there to get a fan so I can enjoy my catio because I can't stand it when it's humid. Anyway, I'm back. This is my podcast, of course, and I'm doing some more memories this time. This time, I thought a lot about my cousins, how much fun we had as kids, and family reunions, and just things like that. And I'm going to focus on that era of my life with my cousins, and a few other things. Anyway, I'm going to take a break, and I'll be right back with my podcast from my head to your ears. I'm Leonard Riggs. I'm Leonard Riggs, and this is my podcast from my head to your ears. And as I've stated, I'll be 60 in December, and I thought I'd do a series of podcasts about the memories of the first 60 years of my life. I can't imagine the next 60 years. I don't have 60 years. I'm sure I won't live to be 120, but so I'm pretty sure that most of my great memories are in the past, although who knows, I might, have an interesting few years in my twilight years. I don't know. But I had a lot of fun in this life. A lot of good memories, and I choose to focus on that. Some of my favorite earliest memories were going to my Aunt Faye and Uncle Homer's in Campbell Hill, especially when they lived on the farm in rural Campbell Hill. My grandma lived in Ava, Illinois, which was not far from Campbell Hill, and we'd go visit Grandma, and oftentimes we'd go visit Aunt Faye. We'd take Grandma over with us, and we'd spend the day at Aunt Faye's, and it was so much fun. They had a farm and a 2-story house, and my early memories, my cousin Donna was a year younger than me, and we'd always kind of pair off with the cousin that was closest to our age. I paired off with Donna and little Carla when she got older, and then my sisters would pair off with Cindy with Vicky and Kim with Linda and Brenda, and they were all like ages. And anyway, me and Donna would get in all kinds of mischief because we were the babies then, and I remember playing board games with her and having fun, running up and down the stairs and going outside. And then we'd all have dinner, and all of us little kids used to sit at a little table, the kids' table, I always called it. And I always wanted a kids' table. My house wasn't very big. Aunt Faye's was built for a big family. Of course, well, I guess we had the same size family, really, if you had us all together at the same time. But my sister Lori, of course, left in 1971, and Connie actually didn't live with us, not in my lifetime anyway. So they were already grown by 1971 and married off. But I had such a blast going to my Aunt Faye's when I was a kid. Even the ride there was fun, because going to Ava / Campbell Hill, there's all these hills. It's almost like a roller coaster. And we had a Volkswagen, 1965 Blue Beetle Volkswagen, and you could push the back of the seat down, and it was almost like a station wagon. And we'd push the back of the seat down. The only problem with that was the material of the on the back of the seat was like this, I don't know what you'd call it, almost like fiberglass. It wasn't comfortable. It was kind of a harsh surface, and it wasn't very comfortable. I don't know why they made it that way, but they did. Maybe because it was durable. But we would push that seat back and sit backwards to where it really did feel like a roller coaster in that little VW. And it was so much fun going there. And we'd go spend the whole day there and just have a blast. And I wished I had more detailed memories of that time, but I just remember having a lot of fun. I remember playing board games. I remember us discovering the older kids' tape recorder, and we were making little tapes, me and Donna. And the funny thing about me and Donna is our voices sound just alike on the tapes. I think she was more of my sister cousin. Because we sounded a lot alike. We both had curly red hair. And, yeah, it's funny. She was as close to a sister as, other than my sisters, younger than me, as she could be, I guess. Years later, Aunt Faye and Uncle Homer bought property in Campbell Hill, and built a new house, a ranch-style house, where they had a pond, and it was equally as fun, and they had a basement, and this huge bit of property, and we would go. Generally, we had a lot of family reunions there, and I loved the family reunions on my mom's side, because it was so much fun, and I'd get to play with Donna, and Carla came along in 1971, I think, and she would play with me and Donna, and we still had a blast. We'd play board games in the basement. They had Which Witch, Monopoly. My favorite board game of all time was Clue. We'd play that. I had none of these games. We just weren't a board game kind of family, really. And it ended up, I was the one that would always want these things. They had Sorry, too, if I recall. I would always want these games because they were so much fun. I think the difference between my family and Aunt Faye's family was the fact that Uncle Homer wasn't a big fan of television. So they had they worked on the farm, and they did other things besides watch TV to entertain themselves. So they played a lot of board games. That's what I'm figuring now as an adult. Whereas we watched a lot of television. A lot of my memories with my family comes from television shows watched, which I've done a podcast on that. But yeah, it was so much fun. And then I remember a great Thanksgiving at the new house where Aunt Faye had, where my mom's side of the family all got together, and we had a Thanksgiving feast. It wasn't on Thanksgiving, but it was near Thanksgiving. And everybody was there, and then all my cousins. It was just a house full, because there was several members of I'm trying to remember how many kids were actually in my mom's family. They had a younger sister, Aunt Barb, that got killed in a car wreck when she was 19. Of course, that was in May, which May is not a good month for my family. And I think, oddly enough, that's the month both my parents died. But anyway, I'm trying to think. There was Aunt Marge, Aunt Lou, Mom, Uncle Ed, Uncle Jimmy, and Aunt Faye. So there's six kids. Am I forgetting anybody? And then Aunt Barb would have been 7. So there were 6 kids in their family. I had 5 kids in my family. So out of those 6 kids, everybody had several kids. So if you put all that together, and as young kids, none of us were married yet. My sister Lori was married at that point, and she didn't often make it to family reunions, mostly in that time, because they had moved to Scott Air Force Base and later Oklahoma, so they weren't around for those years too much. But we'd have this great Thanksgiving feast at my Aunt Faye's, and again, we had the kids' table, and I would sit with cousin Donna, Carla, cousin Tim Qualls, and cousin Robin Qualls. And we just had a blast. I love playing with my cousins. There's just a special connection with your cousins. My dad's side, I had cousins as well, but Scott was the youngest of this group, and they lived more up north, and we didn't get together like my mom's side did. Although I would see a lot of my cousins from that side of the family on a regular basis, especially cousin Scott. More on him later. But mom's side of the family, I'll always have a special connection to them, and because of these family reunions that were so much fun early in my life. What I remember mostly is the food. Oh my God, it was such good food. My aunts all were amazing cooks. My Aunt Jean Ann too. My aunts, the aunt-in-laws, I guess you call them. Aunt Jean Ann, Aunt Margaret. I love all of them, and they're forever in my heart. My cousins, I could name all of them. Roger, Gary, Debbie, Melissa, Christine, Tim, Vicky, Donna, Carla, Brenda, Linda, and dear sweet Robin, who passed away in a car wreck when she was 19 in the St. Louis area. But did I forget anybody? I'm sorry if I did. Oh, cousin Bruce, who also passed away. I forgot. I would never forget about cousin Bruce. More on him in a minute too. But those family reunions are such a beautiful part of my memories as a young child that I often talk to my sister Lori about bottling good memories up and being able to think about them when you're kind of feeling down, and it brings a smile to your face. And that was one of them. I think about those times. And we also had one of our family reunions at my Aunt Marge's house in Waterloo. And I think we had one maybe at my Aunt Lou's house one time. I forgot about my cousin Mike too. I knew I'd forget somebody. I just don't see them very often. Mike lived in Colorado, and I honestly have lost track of him. I don't even know where he is. Aunt Lou passed away long ago. And Uncle Bob. Yeah, I sincerely love my cousins on both sides of my family. I've got a great bunch of cousins on my dad's side too. They were all a little older. My dad had let's see, Uncle Irvin, Uncle Clyde, Uncle Duty. I can go by their nicknames because all my dad's family had nicknames. So if I called them by their nicknames, it would be Uncle, you're going to laugh, Uncle Pinhead, Uncle Duty. My dad was Mighty. My aunt was Aunt Tootsie. Her name was Helen. Aunt Tootsie and Uncle Toddy. And I think that was all of them. Uncle Toddy was severely mentally disabled and was in a nursing home most of his life. And I remember visiting him a few times as a child. This is on my dad's side. But those memories of family reunions on my mom's side were so wonderful. Oh, gosh. And I will always have a special connection with my cousins, even though we don't get together like we used to. But you got to figure now that most of my cousins are either parents or grandparents now. So that, those 6 kids, had kids, and their kids had kids, and some of their kids are having kids. And so there's only actually out of my mom's family, Aunt Faye and Uncle Jimmy are the only 2 left. Everybody else has passed, but their children have all multiplied. They've been fruitful and multiplied. So if we actually had a family reunion where we all got together, we'd have to rent something, or park or something. And we actually, I think our last family reunion on that side that I went to anyway, was, I believe, in 2001, which was 25 years ago. And after Grandma died, they kind of stopped. I think that was the first family reunion after Grandma passed in 2000. And it was a good time. My poor Aunt Homer, Aunt Homer, Uncle Homer, and Aunt Faye Frumling out of Campbell Hill. Maybe I shouldn't say their names on the internet. I apologize, but that's who they are. They have some great property, and they've lived there since the 70s, and they just have a pond, and it's just great. And they live by the Amish there in Campbell Hill. And last I was there, they had unfortunately a pig farm started up by their house, and it's kind of smelly. I don't know. I don't hear much about it anymore, but when we had that family reunion, I know that was an issue. It wasn't too bad that day. We had a beautiful day and great food and good times. And I remember as the family dwindled down, and it was just me and my sisters, and my sister Lori was there. And I think they had left already at this point, but I can remember us just acting silly. And I remember my cousin Linda, God love her, she passed away last year or so, and she had Parkinson's, but this is when she was healthy. I remember her jumping rope, and it's a good memory. And like I said, these memories, these days, I'm telling you, in my life are not the good old days. I don't know that I'll have great memories to pull out to think about. I do have some really good friends now and stuff, and I love my cats and stuff, but I miss my mom and dad and my sisters immensely. And but those memories of those family reunions are just so great, and I can sit there and smile and think about them, and I remember them very well. Even though some of the older memories are just kind of snapshots in my mind. I can remember my mom made this dessert with cream cheese and chocolate and a crumble base that was made out of crushed pecans and flour, and I don't remember, but she crushed that in the bottom, and then she put a layer of, it's like a chocolate lasagna, I guess they call it. Layer of chocolate pudding, a layer of cream cheese, a layer of chocolate pudding, and then she sprinkled that with crushed pecans, and oh my God, that was so good. But I remember one of my cousins not liking it, and I was like, you're crazy. I don't remember which cousin it was, but apparently, that cream cheese filling isn't to everybody's liking. Boy, that was one cake my mom would make. I had her make it for my birthday for a while. Excuse me. But, yeah, that's just wonderful, wonderful memories of those days and my cousins. I'm going to take a break because I'm starting to cough a little bit. I'm going to get a drink of water or something, and I'll come back with more memories of cousins and the old days, the good old days of my life. I'm Leonard Riggs. This is my podcast, From My Head to Your Ears. I'm Leonard Riggs, live from my bedroom studio, in good old Christopher, Illinois. This is my podcast, From My Head to Your Ears, and I'm doing a series of podcasts about memories of my life, since I'll be the big 6-0 in December. I won't be doing this every podcast every month, but I will sprinkle this throughout the year of this year with the memory thing. And today I'm talking about my cousins and the great memories. And I was talking about my mom's side of the family and our great family reunions. Now, my dad's side of the family, my cousins were mostly older. My uncle Irvin had a group of cousins. He had a set of cousins. He was way older than my dad. So dad had cousins like me that were almost his age. And I didn't really know that set of cousins. As a matter of fact, I didn't meet one till later in life. And I don't have a lot of memories with them because we didn't get together. Now, my Uncle Duty, Clyde, his family was, and my Aunt Tootsie's family were the two families that I was closest to. Matter of fact, Aunt Tootsie's kids, Linda and Brenda and Larry and Gary. My Aunt Tootsie had what was called a double uterus, and every time she would give birth, she would have twins. So she had two sets of twins, Linda and Brenda and Larry and Gary. Now, they were very much a big part of my life, especially in my early years, because they lived down the street from us and my grandma lived with them. So I was over at their house a lot. And Linda and Brenda married cousin David, and they both became teachers. And I remember that was a big deal for us. Brenda was my Sunday school teacher when she was young, and she became a teacher. And I remember it was cool. My sisters, we had cousin Brenda as a teacher. I never had Brenda as a teacher, ever, which was odd. But Cindy, I think Kim did. Brenda, excuse me again. I swear every time I podcast, I get the coughing. Brenda became a third grade teacher eventually and had her own classroom. And David became a teacher in the Monkeytown district. And they were married. And I remember, though, when they were going through college to become teachers and us doing special projects for them to help get their degrees. I don't remember exactly. I remember us coloring pictures and turning them in, artwork and stuff for some class they were doing. I don't know if they remember that or not, but I do remember that. I thought it was so cool, and I was proud of them. And I remember Brenda and Linda's weddings. I remember Linda's first wedding at the Catholic Church, and I remember going and wearing my new suit, which that was a big thing with me, my new suit. And I remember cousin David's brothers, they were twins, Larry, they were also named Larry and Gary, which oddly enough, there was a lot of that in my family. My mom's side had a Linda and a Brenda, and my dad's side had a Linda and Brenda. And then Brenda married David, whose brothers were Larry and Gary, and Brenda had brothers named Larry and Gary, what were the chances of that, right? But I remember Larry and Gary on my dad's side, David's brothers kind of being little rotten kids when they were young, and them picking on me and my sister, and they knocked me down, and I got grass stains on my new suit. I remember that at the Catholic Church, and I think Cindy got punched in the stomach. I don't remember what happened. I was too young, but I should add that Larry and Gary later in life are good guys. And actually, Gary worked for the local beer company. We call him Fatty's his nickname. Everybody's got nicknames around here, and I really think a lot of Gary. And Larry passed away not too long ago, but they're great guys. But that memory strikes me. Of course, when I'm telling you this, you got to realize that I was every bit of probably 3 or 4, and Larry and Gary were not even 10 years old, probably 7, 8. So we were all really little kids. And you know how kids are. But I remember Linda's wedding really well, and how beautiful it was at the Catholic Church. And to me, in my mind, the Catholic Church, which was located by my house, was this huge place, and it still stands to this day, although they don't have services there anymore. But it had stained glass windows, and it was absolutely gorgeous. I believe Linda's ex-husband was Catholic. But Brenda's wedding was at our church on Church Street, the little Pentecostal church, and it was very pretty too. And I remember having the reception at the little community house. And I remember when Brenda and David got a trailer that caught on fire, which was horrible. And then I remember they're having Sean and later Aaron, and I remember Linda and Jerry, I believe it was his name, had a son named Johnny. And I Linda actually worked for the grade school as well later, and she married later on, remarried Gene Payne, who actually took my sister to the prom when they were 16, my sister Lori, and I remember him picking her up, and I remember her blue prom dress. Anyway, these memories, sorry this is all literally coming out of my head. I apologize for coughing. Literally pouring out of my mind as I'm thinking of them. So you're hearing my mind just literally, as my title of my podcast is, from my head to your ears. That's literally where this is all coming from. And these memories are all pouring out of here, just like water. Now, Uncle Irvin's kids, I don't have a lot of memories of, because they lived up north and I didn't see them very often. I've met him a few times, but he had a son, Uncle Irvin had a son late in life. I believe he was in his 70s, and I can't remember his name, but he tragically died, and I think that kind of really affected my Uncle Irvin. But I liked when my dad's brothers would get together, and they'd all come in here, and they'd all argue. You could hear them clear down the street, because a Riggs trait, which, of course, Uncle Irvin was not really a Riggs, but that family's trait was they like to argue, and they're loud, and I'm loud. And they would all try to one-up each other on athletic stuff and this and that. Argue. I swear, my Aunt Tootsie would sit there and just laugh. And, oh my gosh, they all argued all the time. And, I loved it. It was so much fun. My Uncle Duty was the sweetest guy. And Uncle Irvin, my Aunt Tootsie, I love my Aunt Tootsie with all my heart and miss her so bad. She was my mom's favorite, phone buddy. And I remember after every holiday, my aunt would call my mom and they would talk about how it went. And I remember, oh gosh, I remember when my cousin Larry got married. I remember when my cousin Gary got married. I remember, of course, Linda and Brenda getting married. In the 1970s, when I think I was in the first grade, my mom started working at a place called Essex in DuQuoin, and I had to go over at my aunt's after school until my mom got off work. I think she got home around 4 or 5 o'clock. And I didn't like doing that. I really missed coming home and my mama being home, because I don't know, there was some kind of great thing to come home to my mom. And I really didn't. My grandma had at this point broken her hip and was bedridden, and her mind wasn't so good. And I was a little bit afraid of her, my dad's mom, Grandma Pearson. And I just didn't want to do that. So I begged my mom. She said, well, just come on home and you can wait around until I get home. And she forgot to tell my aunt that. And I remember my cousin Gary coming to get me. So I don't know what happened there. That was adult stuff, but I remember that. But my favorite memory and the best story from that side of my family has got to be my cousin Scott Riggs, and him coming to stay with us in the summertime. He'd sleep on our couch, and he absolutely fell in love with the neighbor girl, Laura. And this is the best love story that I know. They were every bit of 6 years old, and they hit it off from day one. He just fell in love with her. And through the years, they became pen pals, and they kept in contact. And every summer for a long time, he'd come down, and first place he'd goes right over to Laura's. And he would always say, I'm down here to see Laura, And he just loved her. And they both ended up marrying someone else. And finally, later in life, I think in their late 30s, early 40s, they got married finally and are together to this day and are very happy. And I think I know as a fact that my cousin Laura's family loves her. My cousin Laura's family are like extended family to me too. They were my neighbors forever and ever. Laura and Kelly and their Aunt Patty, who was around our age. They're all family to me. They grew up together, and it's just a wonderful thing that happened that they got together finally, and they're having a great life, and I'm so happy about that. It makes my heart happy. Scott's more like a brother to me than a cousin. Him and my dad were my aunt was married several times, and Uncle Duty and Dad were full-blooded brothers. And when I say that, I mean, they had the same mother and father, which doesn't really make a difference, but we share the same blood through and through. So Scott is just, my sisters love him. We all love him. Scott's a great guy, and I can't say enough good about him. And if you're listening, Scott, I love you, brother. You aggravate me sometimes. I aggravate you sometimes, but it's all good. I know I don't think I aggravate my cousin Scott. I think I frustrate him. And that's one thing about me is I'm a stubborn Riggs, just like he is. And if anything, my mother and father and maybe my sisters, I frustrate them so. I'm very hard-headed and set in my ways. So, anyway, that's just the great memories of my cousins and my people and my life. And in my 60 years, I keep thinking of that Beatles song in my life. I'm trying to remember the lyrics, but the one line, I love you more. I love these people. And if any of you are listening, I love you so much, even though we don't get together and we don't talk, and you all are forever in my heart, and you're my people. You're my tribe. Both my mom and dad's families. You're forever in my heart. And, I'm glad that we all got to share a piece of life, a piece of our lives with each other. We're all a great part of my memories, and all part of those memories that I can open up and pull out when I'm feeling down or alone. And for that, I'm forever and ever grateful. And I'm going to take a break and talk about a few other things. And anyway, maybe get another drink of water because I'm starting to cough again. I'm Leonard Riggs, and this is my podcast, From My Head to Your Ears.
From my head to your ears, let the music appear. No distance between us, just jazz in the air. I'll be right back, don't you fear. Every note I play brings me near.
I'm Leonard Riggs, and this is my podcast, From My Head to Your Ears. And another great memory that popped in my head about my cousin Scott and my Uncle Duty and my dad was a great fishing trip that I went on with them when I was probably, 6 or 7. I remember them picking us early in the morning. It was barely sunrise. And I remember stopping off at the old Snyder's grocery store, which was located where the old Huck's was in Christopher, which is now the Huck's gas pumps. But it was a wooden old grocery store that had been standing for years and years. And we got our morning provisions, and they may have bought worms there. I don't know. For all I know, my dad caught his own worms back then. I have no idea. I really don't remember that, but I remember going, and the big memory about that trip was, I want to say we either went to the old Resi or we went to Rim Lake. I'm not sure about that, but I'm sorry for these coughing fits, I swear. But my big memory about that day was Cousin Scott and me coming across a water moccasin, and my cousin Scott taking a stick and, maybe it's not politically correct these days, but let's just say that snake wouldn't be biting any of us. Water moccasins are very poisonous. And he took that stick and he defeated that snake like a soldier defeating the enemy. He took care of that snake with that stick and made sure it wasn't going to bite any of us. And I remember that to this day. And I thought, my cousin is so awesome, because I wasn't a big fan of snakes. I'll be honest with you. Water moccasins especially. I don't care for snake bites and poison snakes at all. So, but that's the big memory of that trip. I don't remember if we caught any fish. I'm sure they did, because they were always having fish fries. That's a big thing my uncles would like to do when they came to our area, was go fishing. And Scott. They were city guys, basically, at this point. Cousin Scott was a city boy through and through, but they loved to come down here and go fishing, and that's the only time I went with them. And I don't know why I didn't go again, but I didn't. Number one, I never liked to get up too early. I think that's been a theme throughout my life, but the one time I went, that's a great memory. Another memory I like to pull out of my hat when I'm trying to have good memories. But they would have fish fries, and I don't like fish, so that's probably why I didn't go fishing. I'm just not a fish eater. That is a common theme on both sides of my family, is fish and fish fries. Now, I like hush puppies, if they make those with the fish, but I don't like fish. Even if I go to Long John Silver's, I get the chicken platter with hush puppies and french fries. But I just don't like seafood. That's just me. And, yeah, that's just some of the great memories I've had with my family over the years. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I loved going to my grandma Qualls's in Illinois. Now, I never really spent the night with my grandma, which is kind of sad. And she actually once said, "Why did you never spend the night with me?" That's because I was a bedwetter and I didn't want to get in trouble. True story. Confession time on the From My Head to Your Ears podcast. I was a childhood bedwetter. Yeah. Which kind of, a little side story. I remember a story about Michael Landon. And he did a movie about this, about how he was a childhood bedwetter, and how he became a track star was he would rush home because his mom would hang his pee stuff out on the line, and he'd rush home to grab the blankets off the line before anybody saw him. And he learned how to run fast. So my mom didn't humiliate me like that, but she sure was aggravated at me because I did that. I think my sister Kim did too. My sister Cindy didn't, because, you know, she was Miss Perfect, right? No, I'm kidding. I love my sissy. Anyway, that's kind of a sordid story, isn't it? But yeah, my sisters actually got to spend time with Grandma, and they had a great time. And they got to go spend time with my Aunt Faye and all that stuff. And yeah, it was a great time. But I never did that because of the bedwetting problem. And I was too embarrassed. I am like that to this day. Not that I have a bedwetting problem, but I do not like to be judged or humiliated. That is a theme that I have had in my entire life. That is the worst. And, anyway, little fact about me that maybe you knew or didn't know. I don't like people judging me. So don't judge me about the bedwetting. Or, I don't know. Well, I'm going to take a break and I'm going to wrap this up. I've had a lot of fun revisiting these memories. It always makes me smile, and it's a good way to spend my day off for a few minutes. I'm Leonard Riggs. This is my podcast, From My Head to Your Ears. I'm Leonard Riggs, and this is my podcast, From My Head to Yours. Thank you for listening to my memories of about my cousins and things. And like I said, I'll be doing several memories podcasts since I'll be 60 in December. I may not do this every podcast until then, but it'll be scattered throughout the year. And whenever I get the inspiration to do one, because that's literally how I podcast. I think of an idea and I go with it. That's how I came up with From My Head to Your Ears, the title, because it literally is From My Head to Your Ears. The other title was I'm Talking and I Can't Shut Up, but I thought From My Head to Your Ears was a little less mean. I have a coworker at my job that always says, "Oh God, it's story time again." Her name's Angie. I call her Angry. I do that for a reason. I love her though. She's sassy, salty and sassy. Yeah, I always tell my customers at my job, I always say, hey, stories are free with purchase. I always say, I often sing at work too, whenever a song pops in my head. I'm just a hot mess, you know. But anyway, thanks as usual for listening to this podcast. I enjoy doing it. I'll continue doing it as long as even if I have one listener, I'll still do it until I really don't want to do it no more. It always rings in my head that former classmate that said, "What do you have to talk about?" And here I am almost 90 episodes later, and I'm still talking, and I haven't shut up. But I'm going to shut up for now anyway, and I'm going to call it a day for the podcasting. I'm Leonard Riggs. This is my podcast, From My Head to Yours. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you later.